Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Monday Live Countdown Show from Courtroom Confidential. Thank you all so much for taking a little time out of your Monday evening on a holiday week to join us. I see so many familiar names, Farm Girl and Pammy and Simi Sharp and Alicia K. Mayo. Hi, everybody. I hope you are having a wonderful lead up Monday to your holiday. You would think the Monday before a holiday would just kind of be a day that everybody would decide to just phone it in. After all, you know, with the holiday right in the middle of the week, I figured this whole week would just kind of be a phone it in week. But I don't know what it was. Everybody decided they wanted to have a meeting today. So I've just been back-to-back meetings and Zoom meetings and in-person meetings, and I was borderline exhausted, but now I'm feeling fantastic because we're going to chat for a little bit. And then we have something very special for you guys this evening, which I appreciate you all being here for. It is a live premiere for our latest installment in our Courtroom Confidential conversation series, and that is with Ian Runkle from Runkle of the Bailey. That is coming up at the top of the hour. Ian is a fascinating dude, really smart guy, has a very interesting background. He's Canadian. So we talked a little bit about what it's like practicing law in Canada compared to what it's like practicing law here in the US. He talked about how he got started on YouTube, all of that good stuff that you guys want to know, and just a genuinely interesting character of a person. I really, really liked it. It was our first time meeting too. I've never met him before. We've never really talked before. So we got to kind of meet each other through this conversation. So I can tell he's going to be somebody that I will like having conversations with many, many times in the future. So like as always, we do on these Mondays, we'll talk a little bit about some breaking news, but then if you just stay tuned and stay on the channel, we will take your hand and just guide you on through to that live premiere. So stay with us in the chat and we can chat with you all while you're watching that interview with Ian. But as far as the breaking news this evening, again, you would think it's a Monday before the holiday. Nothing would be happening, but actually something pretty significant happened, and that is in the Luigi Mangione case. He was arraigned today in New York State Court. So if you guys haven't been following this thing all that closely, here's what happened. Luigi Mangione, he is the suspect and now defendant, believed to be responsible for the brazen assassination of a healthcare insurance CEO in New York. He was on the run for several days. He was arrested in Pennsylvania. So first Pennsylvania arraigns him. He has his extradition hearing. He waives extradition. They ship him over last week to New York. And if you guys have seen the photos, I wish I had a photo to show you this evening, but it is something like I've never seen before. When they are walking this man from his transport vehicle to where they're going to take him to the court, it was like everybody who was anybody in New York decided to show up that day, including the mayor, met him. And there was this perp walk to end all perp walks as they walked this man with security like you've never seen before, security like they were expecting some sort of foreign nation invasion, walking him for his perp walk. They actually caught some heat for it. The attorney for Mangione, who you're going to hear from this evening, a brand new attorney, her name is Karen Friedman Agnifilo. She had some stuff to say about that perp walk today. But that was last week. But he doesn't show up to state court where everybody thought he was going to go. Friday morning, we find out, no, in fact, the feds have also indicted him. So we're going to go through that indictment, why they indicted him. What does it mean that he's both being charged for murder federally and state? Is that something they can do? And sneak preview, yes, they can. Spoiler alert, yes, they can. And they are doing it. And why are they doing it in this case? A lot of bizarreness already taking place in a tremendously bizarre case to begin with. And then, so then they had to wait till today to arraign him in New York court. In federal court, they don't ever have cameras, so we had the benefit of having cameras in court for his arraignment today. So we will show you that. And then we will walk through some of his federal indictment and what that means. And because federal indictments are always attached with some sort of affidavit from an investigator, in this case, an FBI agent, to kind of tell us why they are asking to indict him, we get some insights into some of the investigation. And some of it is stuff that we all knew, but some of it was new to me and very interesting. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts, and I'll share with you some of my own. So let's jump right in. First, I want to show you, if I can get it up, queued up here. This is the footage of his arraignment in New York State Court. So if you can follow that, this is now 3 different jurisdictions, 3 different sovereignties who are now charging this man for different crimes, but Pennsylvania State, New York State, and now federally. But this is the New York State indictment on murder charges that I'm going to show to you right now.
Your Honor, we have a copy of the indictment, notice of immigration consequences, as well as rap sheet. I believe the court has it. We'll give the court an extra copy and one to counsel. Does the court wish that we be heard with respect to bail?
What is the situation with the federal authorities based on security?
As we understand that we have primary jurisdiction, and we have been informed by the U.S. Attorney that they intend on allowing us to try our case first. So with respect to whatever goes on there, as the party with primary jurisdiction, the trial and the sentencing will take place here prior to anything that takes place in the federal system.
So what you just said, the answer is it's fine. We take up.
That I'm not sure, because Your Honor signed a writ in which it says that we're going to return the defendant to federal custody. So I think that would be step 2. I do think that logically, as the party with primary jurisdiction, the custody should be here. But I asked the court, in light of the court signing the writ, indicated that we would return him to federal custody, that be done at a later time.
Well, I've been through this before. And if you do that, you're originally. So, from there, but if you work it out with it, rather than proceed.
We will make every effort to accomplish that, Your Honor. There, as the party with primary jurisdiction.
Oh, I'm sorry. I hit something. Sorry, guys.
So, what you just said, the answer is fine. We take custody.
That I'm not sure, because Your Honor signed a writ. So I think that would be step 2. I do think that logically, the court, in light of the court signing the writ, indicated that we would reach.
Well, I've been through this before. And, so, but if you work it out, that we will take custody rather than us proceed.
We will make every effort to accomplish that, Your Honor.
Okay. That's what I was trying to do, is pause it really quickly. So already you guys can see that there's not confusion, but added complexity and difficulty when you've got a person who's both charged federally and state-wise. First of all, if people are telling you that this never happens, of course it happens. People get federally charged on things, people get charged on the state, but usually that has to do with separate independent conduct. This is all surrounding the exact same conduct. It's just 2 different jurisdictions, as he's calling it. I would call it sovereignties. Governments are charging him. And already you're seeing that they have to decide, one, who's going to try him first. New York, as he explained, is going to try him first. The federal government is going to take a backseat and allow that all to play out. But even something as simple as who has jurisdiction over him as a person, his body, whose custody is he going to be in? And it sounds like he's going to have to be transported back and forth between state and federal custody because there's an order in place to return him after this hearing to federal custody. So that goes down to even where is he going to be housed? Is he going to be housed along with P. Diddy in federal custody? Or is he going to be housed in Rikers Island with the nightmare that all is? I'm sure that he's very curious to hear about all of that, but it's just already showing you that because they're treating this case a little bit differently, a lot of complexity is going to arise from it.
Absolutely.
Yes, Your Honor, I would like to make a record, if that's okay with Your Honor. First, we request immediate expedited discovery in this case. The people have had this case for about almost 3 weeks, and that's more than enough time to gather as much information as they can give to us, especially now that we have two proceedings that we have to answer to, one of them being death eligible. So we are requesting that we get immediate discovery of the New York City Police Department and FBI and federal and state documents. The second thing I want to make a record of, Your Honor, is I'm very concerned about my client's right to a fair trial in this case. He's being prejudiced by some statements that are being made by government officials. Like every other defendant, he's entitled to a presumption of innocence. But unfortunately, the way this has been handled so far, his rights are being violated. And as you know, Your Honor, there's a wealth of case law guaranteeing his right to a fair trial, but none of the safeguards have been put in place yet here. In fact, it's just the opposite of what's been happening. He's a young man, and he is being treated like a human ping pong ball between two warring jurisdictions here. These federal and state prosecutors are coordinating with one another, but at the expense of him. They have conflicting theories in their indictments, and they are literally treating him like he is like some sort of political fodder, like some sort of spectacle. He was on display for everyone to see in the biggest stage perp walk I've ever seen in my career. It was absolutely unnecessary. He's been cooperative with law enforcement. He'd been in custody for over a week. He waived extradition. He was cooperative at all accounts. There was no reason for the NYPD and everybody to have these big assault rifles that, frankly, I had no idea was in their arsenal. And to have all of these the press there, the media there, it was like perfectly choreographed. And what was the New York City mayor doing at this press conference, Your Honor? That just made it utterly political. And as Your Honor knows, under Laura v. Charles, the Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit has held it to be clearly established that the staged perp walks to the media, unrelated to a legitimate law enforcement objective, is unconstitutional. And I submit there was zero law enforcement objective to do that sort of perp walk. There's absolutely no need for that whatsoever. And frankly, Your Honor, the mayor should know more than anyone of the presumption of innocence that he too is afforded when he dealing with his own issues. And frankly, I submit that he was just trying to detract from those issues by making a spectacle of Mr. Mangione. And there are consequences to this. He has a right to a fair trial. And I just want to put on the record statements that the mayor made publicly about my client. Nothing saying alleged, for example. And he said, I wanted to send a strong message with the police commissioner that we're leading from the front. I'm not going to just allow him to come into our city. I wanted to look him in the eye and state, you carried out this terrorist act in my city, in the city of New York that I love. And he wanted to show symbolism. Your Honor, he's not a symbol. He's somebody who is afforded the right to a fair trial. He's innocent until proven guilty. And the mayor was talking to jurors future potential jurors that elected him. Those are the people that elected him, that he is talking to and calling this man a terrorist. So, Your Honor, I just want to make a record of this and put everyone on notice that this has to stop. And my client is entitled to a fair trial and presumption of innocence. And we're going to fight these charges, whether it's in the state or federal, to the fullest extent. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, I'm actually going to stop it there. We're not missing anything if we stop short, and I want to make sure to give us plenty of time to answer questions, because I know you guys are asking plenty of questions as well. You should, because it's an interesting thing that you don't see all that often. But you know, good for her. First of all, I think we can already tell she's a very good attorney. She knows what she's doing. She's comfortable in the courtroom. She's got herself prepared. I don't think that she is going to be overwhelmed by the moment. She is a prior U.S. attorney herself. So she's been on that side of things, and she understands how this all should work. But she makes a point. You know, some of this is stuff that is boilerplate, right? I want my discovery, presumption of innocence. Let's get this show on the road, all of that kind of stuff. But she makes a point of highlighting that perp walk and highlighting the fact that the mayor was there. And I don't think that that is just for the cameras. I think that that is a pretty solid point that, listen, this is a murder case, right? People get shot and killed all the time, unfortunately. You don't have the mayor showing up for their perp walks. And for the mayor to say, well, I wanted to be there to look him in the eye, just sounds like a bunch of horse poop coming from somebody who wanted kind of a moment in front of cameras, and a political moment that they're probably going to, you know, run with every ad campaign in their new election. I thought it was uncalled for. It's not going to derail the trial. It's not going to derail the everything moving forward. But it was a moment where you're like, what are we doing here? This always irritates me in these cases that become high profile, how everybody starts to lose their minds and treat them so differently that bizarre things begin to happen. And when bizarre things begin to happen, then troubles start. And when troubles start, then you get situations where a person may be convicted and maybe the public has no trust in that. They've lost trust in the system. Maybe they feel there's ulterior motives, or maybe you start to create appealable issues. So they couldn't even walk this man from the bus to the courthouse without there being some sort of bizarre issue in the way that they treated this whole thing. It was unnecessary. It was not, they could have driven him up through the back door and put him into court without one camera seeing him. But they wanted that moment that we've all seen, that, again, I'm kicking myself, I didn't get you guys a picture of, but they wanted that moment, and the mayor wanted that moment. And the mayor would not have showed up to look this man in the eyes if there wasn't going to be cameras there. That I am very positive of. So, putting aside the guilt or innocence of this young man, already they're starting to treat this differently. But that was the arraignment. You're not missing anything. They just went kind of back and forth doing their little picking new dates, but already I see trouble brewing in the way that they're starting to handle this thing, because they're not handling it like they would any other case. But let's get into, unless there's some questions that we should answer right now. Kaylin, is there anything on this that we should answer? I'm happy to jump in as I'm getting ready to show you guys the actual federal indictment, and we can go through that quickly. Let me just get rid of this stuff here. Give me a quick second, guys. Okay. This is, let me do this so you can see it a little bit better. Okay. This is the federal indictment against Mangione. He is charged in count 1, stalking, count 2, stalking as well, count 3, murder through use of a firearm. That gets him eligible for the death penalty. Count 4, a firearms offense, which was the use of a firearm that's an illegal firearm, plus along with this firearm silencer or firearm muffler, as they're calling it. But the real real goods on this whole thing starts on the next couple of pages, because what happens is, like I said, a FBI agent then attaches this person right here, special agent from the Violent Crimes Task Force, attaches an affidavit essentially running through how they solved this whole thing. It doesn't give us everything, but it gives us some interesting things to talk about. And I highlighted a few that we can talk about right now. First of all, the murder took place on December 4th, 2024, at approximately 6:45 a.m. I don't know why I had missed this point, and maybe this wasn't lost on all of you, but this was very early in the morning. He got up. It's still dark out. He got up to go ahead and murder this man. And this goes to one of the overall themes that I had when looking through this whole thing. And what this document does more than anything is it really highlights the planning that was involved. So he gets up super early. Well, the planning and all of that started way before that, because they were able to, and the document outlines, track his movements through nearby security cameras, from December 4th up to the time of the murder on from November 24th, up to the time of the murder on December 4th. That is 10 days. They have 10 days worth of footage tracking where this man had been. That is a lot of planning. He had been in New York for 10 days before he murdered this man. That is not spur of the moment. That is not heat of passion. That is a person who had taken a lot of time to plan what he did. They talk about how they were able to track him from the Port Authority bus terminal in Manhattan that had originated in Georgia. Now, one thing I noticed they don't say is that they believe he got on that bus in Georgia. So who knows where he got on that bus, but at some point from its origination in Georgia to its eventual end in New York, he got on that bus. He got this false ID that we're looking at right here under the name of Mark Rosario, a New Jersey ID. Again, planning. Again, so 10 days before, he's already purchased this false ID. Now, is there an argument to be made that this is a false ID he had already with him and had nothing to do with the murders? Okay, fine. But I would be interested to know when he actually procured this false ID, and was that all part of the planning? And I think that it was, from some stuff that we're going to get to just a little bit later. Moving on down, he talks about how he consistently kept his mask on throughout his time in New York. For 10 days, he kept his mask on. For 10 days, he realized he was concerned about his own identity getting out there, because he was likely is intelligent enough to have thought about they might try to track him and his movements, and he wanted to make sure to hide his identity. This is a patient assassin. If these are all allegations, I realize that, but these are the actions of an incredibly patient assassin. He got to New York, plenty of time to track the movements of the person that he wanted to kill, plenty of time to prepare. For 10 days, he's in hiding. For 10 days, he's hiding his identity. All of this is just, to me, remarkable stuff. Now, he makes this one mistake in this photograph here to show his ID, but for the rest of that time, he's apparently hiding his own identification. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller so you guys can see more of the document. All right. Then, on December 4th, the day of the murder, they track him leaving the hostel at 5:30 in the morning. So even the day of, he's up an hour ahead of time. He's getting up early to go ahead and plan this murder. Again, the idea of planning, or what we would call in the business premeditation, is seen throughout this entire document. That this is not something that he just decided out of nowhere to go ahead and do. And again, more to come on that. One interesting thing here is that they notice he was on a cell phone at some point while he was waiting for the victim to come out of the hotel. I'm sure we're going to hear more about who he was on the phone with. That may become important. He has said that he was acting alone, but at least he was in contact with someone or doing something on his phone. Again, I don't want to assume it's a phone call or he's texting someone, but he's doing something with his phone, and I'm sure we're going to find out more about that. He had this gray backpack with him, which they talked a lot about. But when he came out of the park, out of Central Park, he goes from the murder to Central Park on this bike. When he comes out of the park, he's no longer carrying the backpack. So he ditched the backpack. That looks like it was pre-planned. It looks like he knew the backpack would be something to identify him, and he's either ditching it to help disguise his movements, or he's ditching it because he wanted them to find it, because we know that they eventually did find it. And what they found inside of it is, from what I'm hearing, though it wasn't outlined in this document, Monopoly money. So it goes on to kind of talk about more of his tracking, where he went. He left immediately after the murders, got on a taxi, goes to the bus station, and leaves New York. And they don't know where he is until he's finally identified at a McDonald's in Pennsylvania, where police make contact with him. And it's during this that I think could also get interesting too, because it says when officers approached him, they asked him for identification. Now, there's a concept in the law called a consensual encounter, where officers are allowed to just talk to you. They don't have to have a reason to do that. This is obviously something more attuned to what we call an investigative stop. But that asking for the identification could become important. If they ask him for it and he willingly gives it, no problems for law enforcement. But if they ask him for it and he declines and they tell him you have to give it, that could be some problem, because now they need some sort of probable cause. But my suspicion is they ask for it, he gives it, and they likely know that that identification is part of a bolo. Be on the lookout for this false ID that they all know at that point, law enforcement did at least know was connected to the killer. And once they saw that, all probable cause issues go out the window. They make their arrest. It's an absolute treasure trove of information for the prosecution. They find the 9mm, they find the silencer, they find clothing, they find then this notebook. And the notebook really becomes the killer as far as premeditation, because they talk about how as early as August 15th, he's saying things like the details are finally coming together. He says that the target is insurance because it checks every box. By October 22nd, he's talking about how his plan, his intent is to whack a CEO. So, I mean, again, this whole case may come down to those crucial moments of that stop. And if that stop was a good stop and that investigation was a good investigation, then this treasure trove of information, which includes the murder weapon, the clothing of the killer, whatever else was in that bag, but this notebook, to me, is the most important, or going to be the most important evidence in this entire case, because of how much planning it shows. It shows that he was thinking about it from as far back as August of this year, planning it, coordinating it. Talks about how he worked alone, and some elementary social engineering, basic CAD, and a lot of patience was all he needed to commit these horrible, horrible murders. So I've talked and I've gabbed, and I've got us right up to the point where our premiere is about to start. So I apologize for having to rush the end of that in there. But let me just give you guys some parting little announcements before you are hustled along to our premiere. First of all, tomorrow, well, first of all, check out our episode from Friday, but tomorrow I just did an interview with Gisela from Grizzly True Crime. She interviewed me, so it's going to be on her channel. That is tomorrow at noon Pacific time. There will be a premiere that we did a discussion about the Menendez brothers. I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. Next Monday, our newest installment in the Courtroom Confidential Conversation series is going to take place with Lauren and Dr. John Mathias of Hidden True Crime. Again, some fascinating folks. I think you'll really enjoy that conversation. I was able to interview the two of them together, so it's a funny conversation that they're both sitting in the same room. And the reason why I'm telling you about that now is that because this is the holidays and because Wednesday is Christmas, we will not have a Wednesday night live this week. So don't be looking forward to that, but check out a news brief that we will have on Saturday, the 28th. In the meantime, happy holidays, everybody. Happy Hanukkah. Merry Christmas. Thank you guys all for jumping in. Please stay tuned. Like I said, premiere coming up with our interview with Ian Runkle. You guys are all fabulous, and I will be talking to you soon. Have a wonderful holiday week.